Hey everybody, welcome back to Tavern Talks. It's been a minute. I'm your wonderful barkeep and host for the evening, and tonight, once again, we bring a new guest to the table. Tonight we have Ron from over at the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo. Super excited about this. We're going to talk about what that looks like, what he's got working on over there, and kind of some backstory on where this all came from, as well as a little bit about Ron. So, as normal, before we do anything, I want to at least let Ron give you a bit of an update and like who he is and what the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo is, and then we'll get into some questions and find out a little bit more, shall we? Anyway, if this is your first time coming here, there is a couple things on the screen that are new. One is chat commands, so you can get information on all of our stuff through those commands that are presented on the thing, including our brand new sponsors at Canadian Dice, where you can get 15% off on all dice that you purchase through over there. And of course, the Kickstarter for Monument Studios just finished up, and we're looking forward to seeing what that looks like as well. All right. Well, Ron, thank you again for coming over here to hang out with us here at the tavern. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo is, please.
Hey, I really appreciate you having me. And well, about me, I'm an old nerd. Been involved in role-playing games since 1980, and it's the hobby's been a part of my life throughout my childhood and my adult life. And I'm an avid RPG and board game collector and miniatures collector at that. And I run a Facebook group called the RPG Collectors Discussion and Barter Group, and a few of the other collectors from around the country said to me in the fall of 2022 that, hey, we should put together a convention, focus on not only new gaming, but some of the older systems. And I said, sure, I'd be in to do that. And but, one, it has to be fun. And two, there has to be a charitable element to the convention. And that's why the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo is a 501c3 charitable organization.
Awesome. I didn't know that, so that's awesome. Um, One thing we do here at the tavern is we do support a lot of those. We actually have one of our partners is Operation Tabletop. They're a 503 charity down in Florida, and they do a lot of stuff with veterans and PTSD and stuff like that, and how to combine those things. So yeah, definitely a big supporter of that, and that's awesome to hear that the entire expo itself is a charity function, which is incredible. Yeah, Operation Tabletop sitting in chat right now. So like I said, you might get an extra reach out to
But
connect you to.
yeah, that would be great. In fact, we do have a gentleman by the name of Adam Erskine who is giving a seminar specifically about role-playing games to help veterans that are suffering from PTSD.
Terrific.
He's going to be putting that on at the convention. So we're very pleased to have that. And our charitable initiative is pretty simple. It's called the Gamer Assistance Program, and many of us have gotten tired of seeing folks who worked in the gaming industry in the 70s and 80s, back at the formation of the industry. They don't have pensions, they didn't have great
Mm,
benefits, and now you see they have to resort to GoFundMe campaigns to pay for things like car repairs, health bills, home repairs. We thought, hey, let's put together a fund that will support people from the gaming industry or just longtime avid gamers who've befallen some financial hardships. And Gamer Assistance Program, you shorten that up. Gamer Assistance Program, it's GAP. So we give out small grants to fill financial gaps that people are having in their lives. So as long as they've been involved with the gaming industry in one form or another for many years, they can apply.
That's crazy, and what such an awesome opportunity for people who, for a while there we've been growing and growing and growing in the TTRPG space, but for the people that were a part of the beginning and a part of that creation portion, giving those them their help that they need for moving, farther into life is definitely a very honorable way of doing it for sure. Wow, I didn't think that's where we were going to start tonight, but that's what the great thing about the tavern is, because for me, it is the opportunity to let other people tell that story, and what a better way to tell the story than to give back. Uh, well, of course, for people that are new to the tavern, make sure if you have any questions, toss those up in the chat room. We're going to answer those throughout the entire night. But I like to do three things when I start my guests coming in. The first three are real simple questions. The first one is when did you get into tabletop RPGs?
It was 1980.
Okay.
I was 10 years old, and I lived in a very, very rural area of southern New Jersey. There were two brothers. They were neighbor kids who were within walking distance, but there wasn't anything else within bicycle or walking distance. And the older brother had started to play D&D, and he asked myself and his brother and another area kid if we wanted to play, and we started playing, and we were all instantly hooked. So, it was only a short time thereafter that I was out, using my chore money or part-time job money to go out and buy my own stuff. And next thing I'm like the go-to person in my school if you want to learn how to play D&D. And, that was the early to mid 80s, and it was, growing in popularity and everybody wanted to play. And I've just kind of carried on like that through the rest of my life. It's like I said, gaming's been a part of my life. It's a part of my life that I really enjoy, and you know, it's not something I'm ever going to give up.
I can respect that in so many ways because I did give it up for a short period of time and realized that it was something that I needed in my life once again, and
Mhm.
it brought me out of some really dark places in my life. So I completely understand with that one. Well, you kind of gave a bit of an idea, but now my second question is what attracted you to Dungeons and Dragons, or what attracted you to TTRPG in general at that 10-year-old age group?
You know, I'm pretty creative and imaginative,
Mm-hmm.
and that really piqued my interest. The idea that you not only do you have a character who's a bunch of numbers that make up what that character's about, but you're actually creating like an alter ego that you're playing in the game with. And as a dungeon master, you're creating the canvas for what everybody else is seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And I take great pride in that even to this day that I've been able to run long running, consistent campaigns. And I think every gamer knows that's kind of rare. You don't
Right.
have game groups that stay consistent over the course of years or decades. And I've been able to do that, because you take a lot of pride in it, but you also, you're finding fun in it and you're making sure it's fun for the people you're playing with at the table.
Yeah.
And that's all part of the experience.
So, what would you say would be one of your most memorable moments in running a game, or at least one? Like, I know a lot of people have many, but what would you say one would be in your perspective?
Um, there've been quite a few. To steal a wrestling term, when you throw a swerve in at people, it's one thing to be running that campaign and they're out for fame and fortune and they're making money. It's another thing if you have a strong geopolitical setup within your game and a trusted friend or ally that has been consistent throughout the entire campaign suddenly turns out to be a bad guy or the bad guy after years and years of gameplay, and all their searching and trying to figure out a mystery in between what I'll call side quest adventures. But there's always an overriding theme. That kind of swerve has occurred in a few of my games where people were just stunned. They didn't know what to do.
That's awesome.
Um, I got the that's no blanking way as the just eyes like saucers going, I can't believe it, sort of thing. And that's happened a few times over the years, and you gotta keep it fresh and spicy, or it gets boring.
What's the longest you've run so far in one campaign?
Well, that's hard to say. I mean, right now, we're entering year 7 of a game.
Okay.
Um, back in the 90s, I ran something for a solid decade for the same group. Those adventuring parties, live on as NPCs or legends in the current games. And so, it is true. Sometimes games run their course, or frankly, sometimes parties die. It happens.
True.
Even at the higher level they get, the more likely they're to, you know, there's going to be a TPK or there's going to be something that happens that primary members of the party get wiped out.
Yeah.
And typically, when you've been building characters for that long, you just don't want to jump back in with, if you're 10th, 12th level characters, you don't want to make a 10th, 12th level character. It's all part of the experience building the characters up, and occasionally you kind of reset. Maybe the surviving characters take some time off and tend to things that they've got going on,
Hmm.
especially if they're name level characters and they have temples, if they're priests, or they have towers if they're fighters, or whatever
Yeah.
they have, while another band of adventurers steps up. And maybe down the road those old characters come back, but sometimes you get to a point of no return where you have characters of a certain level, they die, and then there isn't anything behind them that can mesh a party together. It's not a lot of fun for the first level guys or gals
Hmm.
playing in a game with 12th level people.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing you thought about that you said though that I haven't thought about it, but it makes perfect sense. Is if you've got a large part like a high level party and one or
Mhm.
two of those players die, it is difficult sometimes to get that new player because you don't want to stop the adventure if it's just one person has died, but at the same time you'd also have to find a way to tie those people in, and that can be difficult when you have so much history built between a party group and then you're trying to bring the new guy in, even though the new guy is not technically new, but his character's new, which would make things more advantageous or conflicting. Um,
Right. So you try to do things like, for example, when they start hitting levels, they get henchmen, and sometimes you run henchmen only adventures.
mm,
In order for them to build up those henchmen in case something happens.
right.
But it also adds flavor to that character's background and their miniature world as well.
Hmm.
So that's an important aspect of it. But sometimes it's not possible. If for example, if PCs run across a dragon and there's a few unlucky rolls, if it's an 8-person party and they've all been closely tied together with interwoven uh, dynamics between those characters,
Hmm.
and half of them die, and they don't have the means to get them resurrected, or raised, or maybe they can't be raised because they're gone for whatever reason. Um, Sometimes those surviving characters, I'm fortunate enough that, my players, they take that to heart. Like if one of
Mm,
their friends dies, they're kind of like, whoa, we need to rethink what we're doing. Or if that character had a wife and a child, or a husband and a child, or who's taking care of them now, and so the characters kind of take it on themselves to say, hey, we need to pull back and heal a little bit after watching our friends get slaughtered or disintegrated or turned to ash or whatever happened to
yeah,
them.
whatever the
That's a traumatic
consequence.
experience, and I'm glad that the folks I play with allow their characters to explore those feelings.
Yeah, that's huge, and something that I don't think we talk about a lot. We actually just did this in one of our in the campaign I run on Monday nights. Uh, it was kind of an expected death because of some other reasons, but it's still we wanted to make sure that the expected death was between the player that was planning on dying and myself, not the rest of the players, because we wanted to, like you said, give that experience of what that feels like when there's that trauma, when there's that person taken away, and we've watched it actually ripple through the party in a smaller way because they're only level 4.
Mhm.
But imagining how they would be at level 12 when they've been through multiple adventure like missions and story beats and all this, and you've
Right,
weaved all this story together. Now you've got multiple layers of grief hitting you at the same time, and I think that would be
right.
a it's great that your players are willing to walk through that because a lot of players it can be rough. So
Well, I think a lot of DMs, or game masters and other systems, they may not give the players that sort of freedom. It's railroaded from adventure to adventure to adventure,
mhm.
and there's a place for that. But for me, I want them to have a greater role within their game world.
Yeah,
I want them to know where they fit into their game world, and if they're successful, that success shines through, and I allow them to have the freedom to do some things. If they're of level and they want to build a keep, let them build a keep.
right.
What are the consequences of that? You know, Maybe you moved into somebody's area where they've just, you just go plop down a keep on some land that you don't own. Next thing you know, maybe you have an evil baron coming to collect taxes or whatever it is.
Right.
There's a cause and effect to everything they do, but I want them to be able to explore that and have fun with it and feel a sense of ownership of the character and their surroundings.
No, I really, man, this is good stuff tonight. I'm telling you. I like the idea that you said earlier back, and I want to go back to that real fast. Is you stated maybe they've become legend. That to me is very cool because that means that even though the world is changing and it's growing, and maybe you're not running a 10-year campaign,
Right.
you're running a 4-year campaign, and then that 4-year campaign went to closure, and now you're picking it back up 5-10 years later,
Yeah.
and you've now got these stories that are now being drove between the new party,
Yeah.
which I think is
Think,
really cool.
yeah. Think of it like a Bruce Lee biography.
Hmm.
There was always somebody coming to challenge him.
Right.
He didn't know who most of them were, but everybody wanted to try him.
Right.
And frankly, if the word, if the legend is true, if you wanted to try him, he was willing to let you take your shot.
True.
And that should happen within the character's game world. Let's face it. I mean, in real life, people are jealous of success, right? Some smaller minded people get jealous if other people in their circle are successful. and for the wrong reasons, right?
Hmm.
They decide they want to be against something instead of being for something, or against someone instead of being for someone. Well, there's always going to be those people out there in the game world too.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you know, carefully cultivating those antagonists is important.
True. Well, Chad, if you're not getting good points tonight, I don't know what's going to happen because we're talking some serious stuff tonight. What I want to do though is ask that question that I ask once again, my third question, which is when did you decide it was time to pick up the mantle and why? What was the reasoning behind you deciding to go from player to game master?
Well, it came down to, we really loved the game, but the older brother didn't have the time to always run games, and some of us didn't feel it was enough, so we wanted to play more. So somebody had to be the dungeon master, and we used to take turns. But eventually the role really fell to me. Um, within that little group that pretty much carried on all through grade school and high school.
Awesome. Now, is that same world that you built as a high schooler, is that the same world that you're currently utilizing, or have you completely shifted from that?
No, I utilize two game worlds. I use the Forgotten Realms setting for
Right.
D&D. And have since 1987. Um, but I've also been developing my own game world. And initially, I was developing it, and I was thinking when this campaign eventually came to an end, we would run new characters in the new game world. But I decided that this game's going pretty well, so the characters actually have found themselves ripped out of their homelands right now, and they're in this unknown place to them, and they're
Mm.
just trying to figure out where they are. They know they're not home. They know when they look up in the sky, they see there are two moons, and they know that's not home. And now the campaign revolves around, not only where are we, but how do we get back?
No, I like that. Yeah, because I mean, it's going to bring a new aspect to the game that you're not expecting because now
Hmm.
you have this journey that you're trying to. Everything is different, right?
Right. Yeah, and in fact, when I take notes or when I'm running adventures within the campaign, they all have their own little names or titles. This leg, I'm calling it the Long Journey Home.
Mm, got it. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's hopefully helping you not only experience that moment together where you guys are also everybody's kind of in this. I would guess almost kind of like this fog of war every step because you don't know anything of what's happening right now. But also a cool way to continue to develop your world because you've only probably developed so much, and as we continue to grow and stuff like that, so it's developing your world
Yeah.
with the players that know their
I, I
characters.
I'm enjoying it. Yep.
Yeah. Is there anything unique about your world that you're adding that maybe is not something that others have thought about?
Um,
Maybe the way magic works
I
or
think
how you're.
no, I mean, there are a couple aspects with the moon phases because there are two moons.
Hmm.
So certain things happen. There might only be a double new moon once a year
Okay.
and a double full moon only once a year. And what are the consequences
Mm.
of those moon phases? They've learned a little bit about some sort of vampire, and the only time this vampire feeds seems to be on the double new moon, and they came across a
Oh.
village that was preparing because they know what happens on the double full moon, and the PCs tried to intervene, and they were successful in driving the vampire off, but they didn't defeat the vampire.
Mm,
And the so that's interesting. They can only imagine what will happen on the double full moon.
nice.
I mean, things like that. And
I mean, that's unique though. It's something that
you
not
know,
everybody is experiencing in their world, and it's something
yeah,
that maybe, shockingly enough, maybe another game master is listening or will be listening in the future, and they go, "Oh, that's a cool idea," and it springs another idea, which
yeah.
is hopeful.
Years ago in the 90s, I ran a leg of a campaign in which a high level mage turned lich who was in love with a vampiress, uh, but the vampiress was not necessarily interested in him. Uh, in
Mm.
in order to show his devotion and his love to his beloved, he stopped the moon on a solar eclipse, which plunged the world into darkness. And the PCs had to undo that
Oh no.
because, goblinoid races started running amok. Certain gods, like, in the Forgotten Realms, like the god of the sunrise and renewal and rebirth, his followers' powers waned greatly during this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Things like that. And the world was turned upside down for a period of time. So, that was kind of a unique aspect. There's no in-game measurable where it was like he cast this spell, this spell, this spell, and he made the moon
Right.
stop
Yeah.
over the sun. And there wasn't the science of, well, isn't the place rotating, and wouldn't the sun move as a result even if he stopped it? Forget all that. He magically managed to do this, and here are the consequences. You guys are heroes.
Figure it out.
What are you going to do? Um,
Figure it out.
and that was a unique campaign at the time. Yeah.
That's awesome. Like I said, some of these are really good ideas. I've got multiple people in the chat room being like taking notes, taking notes. Like, it's really a cool opportunity to learn from other game masters that have been doing this for years and years and years. Um, I talked about this a couple weeks ago because I have been on for 2 weeks due to travel. But before that, we're in kind of this strange shift in TTRPGs right now because we have a large group of people that are still playing from the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. And then we have this new group that's playing probably only in the last like 5, 10 years max.
Sure.
Um, and learning from both groups is very unique because they each have their own aspects of what they're pulling from the game itself. And working together with people like that has been really cool to see those blend. Um, so I could talk about campaigns all night long, and I would love to do so. But I really want to let you have some opportunity to talk about what we're going to see at Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo. Because that is
Sure.
your passion that I know you're just waiting to just let go.
Yeah, I am. But to segue on something you just said about grognards, okay, and the new regime of nerds that have come into the hobby, especially over the past 5 years since COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, Being on social media as a gamer at that time, people and just as a human being on social media, people didn't have a lot to do.
Correct.
So when that happens, you saw people turning on one another. There was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of arguing on social media, and the gaming community was not immune to that.
No, it wasn't.
And guys like me were called gatekeepers. People been around in the hobby. Fat white guys who played in their basements. The stereotype that was put out there,
Mm-hmm.
and then, of course, uh, there were stereotypes put out there about the new group of gamers, and the desire for inclusion within the hobby and things like that. And to me, one of the things we wanted to do with the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo was to get past that division and say this to people. Where is every gamer aligned? Forget the differences, forget politics, forget who you're
Mm,
sleeping with, forget who you're worshiping, forget all that. Okay. Where are we all aligned? It's around the game table when we're having fun.
mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter who you voted for. You're there, you're in the moment, you're in alignment, you're enjoying the game, right?
Yeah.
And that was important to me because I was watching some other conventions and even game companies. They were getting caught up in this cultural battle. I'm like, no, we're going to be above that. We're going to say to people, hey, listen, we're not getting involved in your agendas. We're going to play the game. We're going to have a code of conduct at this convention that ensures everybody, is welcomed and treats each other with respect. And we're not going to tolerate anything else. But at the end of the day, it's about playing the games. It's
Yeah.
not about anything else.
Agreed.
And we were successfully able to do that year one. There wasn't a doubt in my mind when started to put this thing together with my years of collecting and my network of people that I know and people in the industry that I know that we could turn out the old school gamers. They were going to come.
Mm-hmm.
Those guests were going to come. We have a large number of guests, and I'm sure we'll talk about them, but guests who were with TSR in the 70s, sort of thing, back when everything first started. But, you know, when content creators such as yourself started showing interest in what we were doing, the Professor Dungeon Masters and
Mm-hmm.
the Bob World Builders and the Stephen Glickers and the Nerdarchy guys and people like that, uh, we said, well, yeah, let's examine what we're doing here. And we went in with two very distinct marketing ideas for the convention. One, people are going to come from all over the country because of the guests and the old school systems. There's a certain group of convention fanatics that are going to travel.
Mm.
They're coming. Last year, first year convention, we had 27 different states
That's
at a
awesome.
first year convention.
Absolutely incredible.
But how do we turn out gamers that are the new folks to the hobby who maybe don't know much about conventions or have only been to conventions, which are a lot of open gaming, you know, throwing a bunch of dealers in a room and having a bunch of open gaming in a game library with no scheduled events,
Mm.
nothing you can pre-register for. So we put everybody together, and the most popular events at the convention were games of first edition Dungeons and Dragons, original Dungeons and Dragons, and fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons. They sold out the fastest. They sold out the fastest again this year at the convention. And so I feel like we've been able to successfully merge the two different, the different communities within
Mm-hmm.
the global gaming community. So we're very happy that we've been able to do that. And one moment from last year at the convention that really stood out is that we had Frank Mentzer as a special guest. Frank Mentzer was Gary Gygax's assistant at
Mm-hmm.
TSR. He co-wrote Temple of Elemental Evil with Gary, as well as other high profile adventures at the time, Needle and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And um, we have a special guest, staff and volunteer cheesesteak dinner on Thursday night. So it gives our guests an opportunity to get some grub, but it also gives our staff and volunteers their thank you comes at the beginning of the convention where they get uninterrupted time with the guests. and get to mingle with the guests. And watching Frank Menser enthrall the introduction to Dungeons and Dragons Club from Rowan University in Southern New Jersey.
No, awesome.
They didn't have any idea who he was, but just the way he brought forward the ideas of gaming and the history of gaming, he had a table of 12 of them enthralled and hanging on every word at that dinner. And I kind of looked at my wife at the time. I said, okay, we succeed. If nothing else happens here, if no one else shows up tomorrow for the opening of the convention on Friday morning, I feel this is a success just seeing this. This warms my heart to see, 70 something year old Frank Menser talking about what the great love of his life,
Hmm.
role playing games with newcomers, relative newcomers to the hobby, and they were eating it up. It was wonderful,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of that last year. We have many guests. We're still not some massive convention with 10,000 people showing up. The guests are all accessible, and people get to talk to the guests. If you're coming to the convention, do you have children?
I do. I have a son.
Okay. So you consider where you're going to live based on the schools, right? And you
Correct.
look at how many students per teacher there are. Well, the attendee to guest ratio at the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo, as it stands right now with what we have pre-registered, it's about 13 to 1.
That's crazy. Like, it's
And
awesome.
that doesn't mean we don't have a lot of people pre-registering, but we have over 60 guests who are from the industry. So at any time when you have downtime, there's going to be a guest kind of also hanging around
Hmm.
that you can kind of, chat with and talk gaming. And, the guests last year were really great. They all made themselves accessible. No one turned anybody away. Everybody signed autographs. Everybody took pictures with their fans. And so that's a key aspect of what the convention's about, to let people see the folks they see on YouTube or they've seen in print for so many years, get to meet them and talk to them and pick their brains and enjoy the history of the hobby with them.
Oh, yeah. You get the opportunity. Last year was my first year at GaryCon, and it was a very similar experience.
Yeah.
Evenings after all the vendor halls shut down, everybody rallies inside the Grand Geneva, and you know, you're only 2 inches away from some of these, industry leads that have been doing this for the last 30, 40, almost 50 years.
Yeah.
Spoke
Yeah. And if
with
you
I got a back massage by Ed Greenwood. I thought it was the weirdest thing in the world, but this man does it like it's just candy for people. It's like the
you
seventh
know what,
person.
I'm gonna hate to break this to you. That doesn't make you special
No, it
when it comes to
doesn't.
Ed Greenwood.
It doesn't. But it was
He's
just
hands
cool.
on.
It
He's hands
he's
on.
very hands on. You're absolutely right. Um,
Um, and I will tell you that certain convention coordinators, I'm not going to mention names, maybe me, maybe take advantage of those times in the bar after the games are done at conventions to talk to guests.
correct.
Somehow my chief of staff with the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo, Phil Wirt, uh, shanghaied Zeb Cook into coming to Page this year because he talked to him out at Gen Con in the bar.
Yeah, I met Zeb at GaryCon last year or this year too. So yeah. Um, but yeah, no, those are great places to meet a lot of the industry. Um, but what I think is awesome is that you have this passion to blend the two. Um, I've never actually, and I know this is going to sound horrible because I am kind of getting up in the age now. Is I've never had the opportunity to play first edition. I really am looking forward to trying it one day. I've booked my GaryCon Platinum badge this year, but I would love to catch a game, at Philadelphia this year, where we'll be at.
You're
So
going to catch it soon because a lot of the first edition stuff's filling up. I know Zeb kind of came in late,
Mm-hmm.
so I think a couple of his games still have tickets. But
Cool.
I know Frank's games got sold out. Harold Johnson's games, sold strong,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah. I mean, if you want to get into those better games, now's the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So we're talking about is great conversation right here. Is that we're talking about all the guests to player ratio. How many
Mhm.
games are going to be hosted? Like, how many events do you have planned for this thing? Because I don't know about you, but I go to conventions for one of two reasons: one, either to network, or two, to game until the early hours of the night. Um, it just depends on the convention, and it looks like this one you can almost do both. So with 60 guests plus more,
Yeah.
are we just running Dungeons and Dragons, or do you have plans for all sorts of
Oh no,
TTRPG?
there's over 500 scheduled events on the schedule.
Epic.
There's a lot of Shadow Dark, a lot of Call of Cthulhu, a lot of BattleTech, a lot of Shadowrun, um, miniatures gaming, galore. You name it, it's pretty much there.
That's awesome.
Troll Lord Games is one of the vendors, and they're kind of planting their flag in this as their East Coast convention
There you go.
that they're going to attend every year. So there's a ton of their games, Castles and Crusades
Mm-hmm.
specifically. There's a bunch of Pathfinder Society, the folks, Paizo's one of their primary demo squads, we'll call them. The Order of the Amber Die will be there, running, some of their scenarios. Um, you name it, it's there. Clayorama, kids events, child parent events, game auction, flea market on Saturday morning, uh, board game swap meet Sunday. There's there's
Little
there's a
something
lot
for
of fun
everybody, it
stuff.
sounds like, and then
Yeah,
some.
yeah.
That's awesome. And for this being a secondary year, how many are you expecting this year?
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
I mean, last year I was hoping for 500 and 1140 showed up. Um, this year we're approaching 700 pre-registrants already,
Yeah.
and just uh, I don't think it's going to be exactly the same as what happened last year, but the pre-registrations really picked up for the more casual gamers in the months of October and November. As the convention got closer, the real diehards jumped in early this year, but on October 15th last year, I think we had 400 registrations.
So you're 300
And
up
here we are,
for.
we're not even October 1st and we're approaching 700.
Mhm.
So I don't know, maybe 1,500 this year, maybe.
That'd be awesome. 1,500 to 2,000 people to come out to game for
I hope
three
I
days.
hope it's not 2,000. If it's 1,500, I'll be very happy. If it's 2,000, um, it might be overload, but I can tell you in 2026, we're expanding to another 80,000 square feet in the convention center we're in. So we're going to be prepared to make a big jump both in the size of the vendors area, because our vendors area sold out in February of
Mm,
this year for a January of the following year convention.
that's awesome.
We have 50 something spots and they sold out, and we've got over 70 vendors on the waiting list. So we're obviously going to be able to lean on vendors a little bit more next year. We're still going to curate our vendor area, meaning we're not going to have 50 people in there selling 3D printed terrain. We're going to make sure there's a little bit for everybody.
Correct.
I
Yep.
do promise there will be only one RPG themed soap and candle company there, because I don't I'm not sure the world could stand two of them in the same place. Might be like Doctor Who touching one another and different aspects of the Doctor, but um, we curated it last year, went very well. The dealers who were there, uh, without exception, reported that they did very well.
Awesome.
Um, our auction, which is the primary driver for the charity, raising charity funds, that did extremely well last year. Um, we had two people. We had one person uh, uh, sell $18,000 worth of product in the auction, and a lot of collectors' items. So there was a lot of interest in the auction. The flea market was super busy. Uh, the games were busy. The seminars were informative. The panels were great. It really went off very well for our first year.
Yeah, first year to go, expectation of 500 and double that and then some. That definitely.
I was hoping for 500. I would have been happy with three. We were hoping for five, but there was quite a bit of response, and
Yeah.
and I'm hoping this is going to become one of those conventions that people want to be at year after year after year, not only for the good uh, games on the schedule, not only for the vendors, but to see their friends at the convention once a year.
Oh, I will.
Like like almost like a yearly reunion in
Mhm.
January. And now that we've been able to kind of plant our flag on Martin Luther King Jr. weekend with that Monday off, I feel comfortable being in January. So,
Yeah. I completely agree. I had this conversation with a lot of people over the last year because conventions have become more and more of my rhythm than I was
yeah.
expecting. 2, 3 years ago, I was going to 1 to 2 max, and now I'm currently projected for 2025 at 6. So, I mean, it's going to be a busier year.
We had better be one of them.
Well, I've already got you slotted, so
Okay, good.
since
Um,
Tabletop Misfits will actually be doing a lot of the media, going around checking out the vendors and
right.
presenting a lot of that information to the audience. But I think for me, I'm excited because it's an East Coast one, and that's the one thing I really saw as a downfall for the East Coast is we're missing a lot of these TTRPG board game conventions on the East Coast because everything is still in that home base or in the West. You got two options there. You can either go home base and go, Wisconsin, Indiana, like the big ones are right there, Ohio, that the Midwest, and then the western side, of course, has got all the ones in California and in
let
that
me
area.
give you a little practical thought on
Sure.
TTEs on the East Coast.
Yeah.
When you're in Indiana or you're in Wisconsin, you've got market to your north, you've got market to the west, you've got market to the east, you've got market to the south. The fish in the Atlantic Ocean do not play role-playing games.
True.
So
Absolutely
you're you're
100%.
you're missing, you're missing something in terms of how far people are willing to come for
Mm-hmm.
for a convention. So, the further you can creep into the center of the country, the better you're going to be. Now, for me, I'm from, the Philadelphia market. I'm from Southern New Jersey, which is firmly like a Philadelphia marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
And I work in Philadelphia on a daily basis. So Philadelphia, I knew we wanted to run in an urban area. I knew we needed to be in a place where um, we could expand, meaning, don't go to a hotel that's going to hamstring your ability to expand because they don't have the room. So we went to a convention center, and I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good about where we're at. It's real close to I-95. it's real close to 76. So if you're driving in, it's easy to get here.
Yep, I'll be driving
Um,
in. I'm not gonna fly to this one because I'm over here on the East Coast as well, um, and it'll be
where
one.
are you at?
I'm in Southern Virginia.
Oh, you're in Southern Virginia,
Yep,
Western or Eastern?
Eastern.
Okay.
So,
Right.
and we've got a few people down here and a growing community of not only just gamers, but we have professional game masters coming around the area. We've got crafters and creators and things like that as well. So we're finding our little niche here in this part of Virginia, but we'll as we continue to grow.
You
So,
have some strong game stores that have been down in Virginia for a while. I mean,
hmm,
specifically One Eye Jacks has been in Richmond for decades, right?
yeah,
So, when you have a game store that's been a solid game store and been a consistent game store, that creates a more sophisticated gaming community that rallies around that store. You have that in Maryland with games and stuff, right?
hmm,
And Bernie, it's a huge store. It's constantly busy. You have it in the Philadelphia region with the Complete Strategist that's real close to the convention center where we're at. They've been there for years. Pittsburgh has their stores that have been there for years. So, if there's a good game store, the game community tends to cluster around it
hmm,
and gets attracted to it. It's when the game stores, as so many of them do, they pop up and then they disappear because people are hobbyists and they're not considering the business ramifications of oh, that looks like a cool miniature. Let me open that up and paint it. Well, you might as well have stolen them. Somebody might as well have stolen that from you because you lost money just now.
right, yeah.
And that's something that every game store owner who's a hobbyist has to control themselves.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I said, we're lucky down here in Southern Virginia. We've got 6 or 7 big game stores within the probably 50 miles at least, where
Nice,
that have been around for 10 plus years. Like so, I mean,
nice.
at least they're not collapsing out of nowhere. I
Yeah,
like the sound of a once of the year reunion. I'm planning to make it next year 3 because third time's a charm.
yeah. I vacation occasionally in Southern Virginia, either in Minetta,
Okay.
which is on the southwestern
Hmm.
side over by Roanoke, or by Fancy Gap. We're in Fancy Gap, which is right along the North Carolina border, just north of Mount Airy, North Carolina,
Okay.
land of Andy Griffith.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I'm very familiar with the area, and I cover that area for my job.
Oh,
So,
nice.
yeah,
Yep. Nope, we're down here in the historical region, down here in Williamsburg area. So,
nice.
but but yeah. Well, Ron, this has been an absolute field day. Just picking your brain about some DM tips and things about
Mhm.
how world building, and then of course the incredible convention that you're building, second year in a row. Thank you once again, and not only to come on the show, but also to allow us to come out there and review it and check it out and
Appreciate it.
put all that media out there for you. Um, I've got our friends over here at Operation Tabletop. We're gonna get you two to connect, and that way you guys
Okay.
can discuss the opportunities that might go there.
Right.
Any last things that you want to share with the audience about Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo or gaming in general?
Sure. So, a couple of things. I really appreciate you bringing me on, and I love to talk gaming. I'm willing to talk gaming anytime. So, don't just bring me on, so I can promote the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo. If you ever want to bring me on just to shoot the shit about role-playing games, I'm happy to do that. I have created a discount code for fans of your program. If the if they visit our website at www.phillygamingexpo.com, they can get $10 off their badge for the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo by using the discount code Tabletop Misfits, and that's all one word with the T and the M the first T in tabletop, and the M in Misfits capitalized.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, we appreciate that, and I popped that into our chat here. We'll make sure that that information also goes out to our YouTube for when people are watching this later on.
Wonderful.
And hopefully, we bring a Misfit community to the crew there up in Philadelphia. I'm really looking forward to it. I did not get. I'm missing out on my normal East Coast convention this year due to some personal arrangements that had to be made first. So I'm excited to still have that East Coast experience this year. So
Well, that's great. Well, we'll be happy to see you out, and we appreciate your interest in putting us on the program.
yeah,
Thank you.
definitely. Anybody in the audience have a question before we call for last call? That is the last thing we can do for the evening. Once again, thanks Ron for coming on and sharing just your knowledge of tabletop and your stories that you were able to create over the years, and then your passion for this convention that looks like it's growing in a very positive manner and hopefully continues to grow throughout the years. If we have nobody else, any conversations in the chat room, we're going to sign off here, and definitely make sure that when you're on there, go check out the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo page 2, and you can use Tabletop Misfits, all one word, capital T and capital M, for $10 off on your badge. Come see us in January. What's the exact dates for that, just so our audience knows?
For gold badge holders, staff, press, game masters, and special guests, it starts Thursday at 5:30 p.m. And for the regular weekend badge holders and the daily pass holders, it starts Friday morning at 9 a.m.
And what's the dates on this one again?
January 16th through January 19th. So that's Thursday through Sunday.
That's awesome. Well, thanks again, Ron. I'll make sure that I keep you on the listing for extended conversations as we continue to grow in the next year. Not only are we going to be talking about Dungeons and Dragons in 2025, but we're going to be talking about all sorts of TTRPGs as we continue our partnership with people like Cobalt Press and Freely Gaming, or Freely Publishing rather, and looking forward to it. Real quick, before we sign off, two things, please. One, make sure you go share, like, and follow over on all of our social medias, as well as keeping an eye out for our brand new show that launches here in the next couple weeks, where we're going to be doing kit building with our new co-host, Beaker, who's probably in the chat room right now. So we're going to give him some love as he comes here on the Misfits to do some kit building. He's starting with a Gundam kit. I don't remember which one he said he was building, but keep an eye on social media for that. And last but not least, stick around so we can raid somebody and pass all of our love to the next people within the community. But until then, we'll see you guys all next week. The tavern is closed. Have a wonderful night.